guys, this is Tom Kitterman. Welcome back to The View from Mars Hill, where we do apologetics for patriots. Today's February 12th, 2019. This is episode 7 entitled, Hey, What's That in Your Tummy? Or The Apologetics of Abortion, How to Talk to Other People About the Pro-Life View. Well, by the way, if you're wondering what apologetics means, apologetics is just the art and science of defending your belief system. Now, I've been trained as a Christian apologist, so my area of expertise is in defending the Christian faith, but the tools that we bring to bear on that, being able to effectively articulate your position, being persuasive, winsome, having a good character, all those things work well when you're trying to persuade people about any other kind of truth. So those are the tools that we work with. That's what we're seeking to do, is to give you the tools that you need to help talk effectively to other people about what you believe. Now, the last time we got together, we were talking about abortion. We were talking about the difference between the value of human beings. On one worldview, the Christian worldview, we talk about human beings having intrinsic value. That means their value is built in, and it's a function of them simply being human beings. Intrinsic value means that your value is not assigned, it's not acquired, and you can't lose it. It's there all the time, no matter what. It comes with you. The other type of view is where human beings have a worth that is instrumental, meaning that your value, your worth as a human being is a function of what you can say, think, or do. And because it's a function, it's something that you can gain, and it is also, by the way, something that you can lose. The argument on the left is that the preborn baby has no value because it is not yet self-aware, it can't contribute to society, it doesn't have hopes, dreams, and aspirations, it is not what they call a human person. Personhood is something they ascribe and assign to human beings that can be given and it can be taken away. So that baby in the womb doesn't have that worth, and neither, by the way, if they're logically playing out their view, neither do people who are in the end stages of life either. People, for example, who have advanced Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia, who aren't really there to participate. Another way to view this is that we're looking at the value between theism, which promotes the intrinsic value of human beings, and secular humanism, another type of worldview that is wholly related to our values and beliefs being devised by us and not given to us from a higher authority. And it's secular humanism that embraces the theory of the instrumental value of human beings. Another way to think about it is simply the battle between godliness and worldliness. Now, when we're talking about abortion, it all boils down, the entire debate boils down to one simple question. And the more you can simplify this, the more you can get this down to just one question, the easier it's going to be to talk about, the easier it's going to be to defend. The question is this: that thing in the womb, what is that thing? What is it? Is it a human being or is it something else? If it is a human being, then it is entitled to our protection, care, nurture, love. And if not, who cares? Why all the hand-wringing about abortion? If that thing is not a human being, do whatever you want to it. Why does it matter? Now, when we're talking to other people about this issue, there are 4 things that we have to battle, kind of like clouds that we have to push our way through before we can really clear the dust and gain any headway. Here are the 4 things. First of all, it's all the disinformation that's being promoted by the culture, and particularly by the news media, and most particularly by people in the political arena. This disinformation has other people believing that, for example, that there's some kind of a difference between being a human being and being a human person. Listen, guys, this is a distinction without a difference. What is a person? Why is that distinct from being a human being? Well, it turns out there is no clear-cut definition of quote-unquote personhood. There is, however, a clear-cut definition of human being. That definition, by the way, is provided to us by science. We know what a human being is. the genus Homo sapien has certain characteristics. It has certain DNA. And we can easily identify a human being. With a human person, not so much. It's who it is you're talking to thinks that it is. In the state of New York, with the law that they just passed allowing abortions right up until the minute of delivery, they define a human person as someone who has been born and who is alive. Now, this is totally arbitrary, but what it does is it allows them to kill a baby in utero right up until the moment that that baby comes down the birth canal. And friends, I don't know what kind of a universe you live in, but where I live, that is infanticide. That baby, 10 minutes before birth, is entitled to our love, care, and protection. It is the most vulnerable among us. Why would we not protect that thing? And if we don't know what it is, why would we not err on the side of caution and protect it? So this is the canard that they're throwing out there. This is the disinformation that's being foisted on you by the news media, by people in politics, and by people on the left. Now, because of that disinformation, we have developed habits of thought through that propaganda. If you talk to anybody about this topic, typically what they're going to tell you is, well, even though they might not personally advocate abortion, they're going to tell you that a woman should have the right to choose. Okay, well, that could be true if, in fact, the person in the womb is not a human being. If it's not a human being, yes, they do have the right to choose. There's a mosquito out there? Done. There's a mosquito in your womb? Done. But if that's a human being, maybe not so quick, right? So we have a lot of habits of thought, like, for example, that a woman has the right to choose. That's another one of the clouds that we have to fight through. The third one is the emotions of other people who are talking about abortion. Now, believe me, if you've ever had a conversation with anybody about abortion, it can be hot. People get really worked up about this issue. Even people who are not parents, who are not prospective parents, people who've never, been in that arena, yeah, they can get really, really excited and hot under the collar about this topic. The fourth thing that you have to guard against is not the emotions of others, but the emotions of yourself. You have to be careful that when you're talking about this topic, that you don't get so emotionally involved in it that you start being abrasive and abusive to the people that you're talking to. Your number one enemy when you're talking about abortion with anybody is adrenaline. And the key to success is keeping the discussion low-key, conversational, and open in nature. Now, today we're going to explore some ideas for being able to establish a real dialogue so that your attempt to persuade doesn't look like an assault on womanhood. And there are 5 steps to having a productive conversation. We've talked about this in a previous video. And that follows this pattern. It's an acronym. It's LIKES, likes. In the first step, we're going to listen for an opportunity to get involved in the conversation, an opening, if you will. What we're waiting for is some kind of erroneous assertion. For example, you might hear somebody say, well, I'm so glad they lifted the ban on late-term abortions in New York. Now women will finally have complete choice over what happens to their bodies. So after that, the I is that you interject and you offer them a point of affirmation when you do that. Now listen, what you're doing is you're not affirming that erroneous idea, you're affirming them as a thinking person. Then you're going to ask them to tell you more about it. That's K, you're asking a question. Listen, interject, and ask. Altogether, it's going to sound something like this. Oh, it sounds to me like this is something you really care about. Tell me a little bit more about that. So those first 3 steps all occur in the opening sentence. This step is really critical, though, because it sets the stage for all the interaction that's going to follow in this conversation. What you've just done is you've respectfully given them a platform to speak, rather than just, dumping the truck on them and creating tension in that engagement. Now you have an opportunity to ask some more questions to draw them out so that you really understand their view. And you could say it like this, explain to me a little bit about why you think this is such a good thing. I'd really like to hear your thoughts. Again, we affirm the person, not the erroneous idea. Now, in this step of the process, we're not seeking agreement. We're only looking for clarification of their view. So we call this part of the process clarification. We're asking questions that are non-threatening at first, and by doing so, we accomplish some major objectives. Number one is it keeps the other person from getting defensive and putting up barriers to communication. Again, remember, we affirm the person, not the faulty philosophy. Number two, it gives you more information to work with. And you can really then kind of help them pick apart their view instead of picking apart a caricature or a straw man of their view. The third thing that it does is that it gives you time to relax a little bit and formulate a cogent response. And the fourth thing that it does is, because you're asking them questions and then they're making assertions, it forces them to have the burden of proof. They're making the assertions, so the burden of proof of those assertions is on them. The burden of proof is not on you to disprove what they're saying. This is the power of asking questions when you're trying to red pill somebody. It takes all of the pressure off of you. You don't have to know anything. You don't have to defend anything. All you have to do is be like a news reporter. You're not there to give your opinion at first. You're just there collecting facts. Just let the other person be the expert, even if you know vastly more than they do about the subject. Be respectful and listen. By the way, there's another reason to do that. Hey, we could be wrong. They might have some nugget of wisdom to offer that you've just completely overlooked in your thinking, so don't be so quick to dismiss them out of hand. Again, let them talk, ask more questions that are non-threatening, non-challenging, and make sure that you understand their view, just as if you were going to have to write a newspaper article or a paper about their view. Now, when you're satisfied that you've done that, you're going to ask another question. This time, it's a very specific kind of question. The first set of questions were for clarification. This particular question is asking for confirmation. You're going to key in on something that they said that you know is wrong and that you want to challenge them on, but before you do, you're going to ask them if your take on their view, as they described it, is accurate. For example, you're going to say something like this. So let me see if I've got this straight. You think it's okay to abort the baby at full term because it's not yet a person. Do I have that right? Notice what's happening here. At this point, you're like a narrator describing the conversation without taking a side one way or the other. Now, this puts you in good standing for what's coming next, which will challenge them on their assumptions. But now things are going to take a turn. You've asked for clarification, you've asked for confirmation, now you're going to ask for justification, and here's how you do it. The first set of clarification questions amount to this. What do you mean by that? Now you're going to ask questions that amount to, how do you know that those things are true? Now, in the example we've been using, you might want to ask it this way. Okay, I think I've got it, but I'm curious about one thing. How do you know that the preborn baby isn't a person? What's your source of information on that? Now, when you ask that question, what you'll probably get is the person just rehashing their view, but they've already told you what they believe, and it will probably sound something like this. Well, the fetus isn't born yet, so like it says in the New York state law, that baby doesn't qualify as a person. Now, at this point, you've got to drill down and get to the why. And you'd say something like this. Yeah, I understand that's what the law says, but how do you know that that's right? How do you know for certain that's what makes a human being a person? On what basis did New York State decide that? And more importantly, on what basis do you believe that? Do you believe everything that the government says? That's the kind of question that you need to ask. Whatever they say, listen very carefully to the answer and make sure they're answering the question, how do you know that's true, and not just restating their belief. This is going to be important for the next phase of the conversation. By the way, let me share with you a philosophical category right now. We're asking the person about what they claim to know. Knowledge is a justified, true belief. The thing that we're trying to get at here is, how do they know? What is their source of justification for that belief? Now, as we mentioned in the last episode, there is no objective fact that indicates either that personhood is a valid qualifier for attaining human rights, or that personhood is even something that actually exists. Look, when there are injustices happening in the world, we say that this or that country is violating what? They're violating human rights, right? We don't say they're violating person rights, do we? The reason is that rights don't attach to persons, they attach to human beings. Personhood has no objective meaning. Our identity as human beings, however, is easy to objectively discern. These are the things that we've got to get our confused friend to see. Number one, the thing in the womb, from the moment of conception, is a human being. And this is not, by the way, our opinion. This is what the science of embryology tells us. Number two, human beings have rights and are entitled to protection regardless of their size, their level of development, their environment, or their degree of dependency. And three, we don't kill human beings for the reason that women typically have abortions. Now, as we approach these challenging conversations, there's something you can carry with you that should help keep you calm. Here it is. You know the truth. They don't, and it's your job to help them discover that fact. Now, remember what I said about adrenaline being your chief enemy? You can just stand there and ask questions confident that the Holy Spirit will reveal the truth to that person when the time is right. You don't need to get them to agree with you. You just have to help them see the facts of the matter, be they physical facts or spiritual facts. Don't persuade, present. Make a reasonable argument that they can chew on later, and always leave the door open for a future discussion. Next time, we're going to talk about what to do after they tell you why they believe what they believe. Spoiler alert here, you're going to ask them more questions. Thanks for being here with us today, friends. If you like this video, please share it with your friends. Click the like button and make a comment for good, bad, or ill. I would love to hear your suggestions on how to make this channel more relevant to you. And of course, if you like what we're doing, make sure you subscribe to The View from Mars Hill. Ring the bell for notifications so you know when we make new posts. That's all for today. Thanks for being with me. I'm Tom Kitterman. Have a great one, friends. See you. Bye-bye.